Hello and welcome back into another edition of Cardinals Corner. Flying alongside me, as always, a man so primed for vacation you wouldn't even believe it. Arizona Sports Cardinals reporter Tyler Drake. I am Eric Ruby. The Cardinals had mandatory minicamp last week. This week they do not, hence Tyler Drake so kind to join us right before his vacation. So Tyler, let's get this out of the way so you can go kick up, sip some Mai Tais in the sun. Does that sound nice?
That sounds great. But no, we had to get this done first, man. This is priority. This is always priority.
Well, you were there. What was the big storyline, the big takeaway from Cardinals mandatory minicamp?
Yeah, for me, I think the biggest thing has got to be the accountability factor. I think it was really, just touched on from the beginning, from really since we saw Jonathan Gannon get hired, Monty Ossenfort get hired. They really preached, having that accountability, being able to, really just be accountable. That's the thing. Feel that pressure, have that good pressure. And from the, even before minicamp, even with the end of the OTAs, you could feel that. Zaven Collins was great and how he explained of, there's good pressure in that locker room. There's pressure where you want to step up for your teammates, where you want to do this. And really, it makes me think how bad it might have been in that latter half.
Layers back,
because it's not only him. It was Dennis Gardeck. It was Colt McCoy. It's a lot of these returning guys. James Conner, that they love it. They love the accountability. They love the good pressure that this team is putting on them, and you can really see it. Guys are really engaged. Zaven Collins, I've got to give him a shout out just because the guy's moving from inside linebacker to pass rusher, and he's not even batting an eye. He's all bought in. He's fully ready to go. And I think I said it the last time when he talked about the eggs, when he brought in the eggs, and that was really the biggest example of the dude brought in eggs to have some breakfast before a meeting, and they put him up on the board the next day to make an example of, hey, if you're showing up, make sure you're ready to go. Don't have any other outside influences. Finish your food, get in, and be ready to work. And I think that's a huge part in turning this culture around. It's the little things that are really going to help this team get back to where they need to be.
The accountability factor was one of my favorite things to read from yours, one of your many articles on ArizonaSports.com, the Arizona Sports app, covering Cardinals through voluntary OTAs, mandatory minicamp. But I got to be honest with you, Tyler. I thought I set you up with a nice softball, right? What's the biggest storyline from Cardinals OTAs? I'm not saying you missed. I'm just saying you hit it in a different direction than I thought.
Okay.
My mind was on Budda Baker.
Yeah.
Because,
oh God. Yeah.
Because he was there,
but he wasn't.
But he wasn't there. What do you know about that?
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Bad on me for that one. Let me tell you, I got stuck in the in something else.
You're not.
I'm looking at the big picture. I'm looking at the big picture.
That is something that has been really striking, is how they've operated on a whole, but micro level. There's some big stories.
And that's what I saw on the field, where we didn't see Budda Baker on the field. So he was at mandatory minicamp, but he wasn't participating in the on the field work. So it sounds like he was still doing the meetings, still talking with coaches, his teammates, everything like that inside the walls. But as soon as they got on the field, not so much. So wasn't out there for any of the mini camp for the open portion, at least. I know they saw a couple of photos of him out on the field during the closed portion, it looked like, or during some kind of practice. So he was out there. It looked like he was engaged with his coaches and teammates, just wasn't doing anything. And really, for me, that's a move of, I don't want to get fined, but I'm still going to have my stance.
Oh, yeah.
I'm still going to be on my stance of, I want a new deal or I want to be traded, and I don't want to get fined. So, because if you're trying to make more money, losing money in the process does not sound like the right thing. Yeah. So it's definitely a move that I saw as, I don't want to pay more money, don't want to get fined, and I still am clearly in my right on my side of, I want a new deal or send me elsewhere.
Ironically, he's walking a very fine line, like, to not get fined.
Yeah.
And it's about as even as you can play it from sticking to your word and saying, when I need to be there, I will be there. But also letting everybody, not just like Monty Ossenfort knows, Jonathan Gannon knows, they're aware that there's a situation going on when it comes to his contract. He wants more. Mm-hmm. They're figuring that out. But you let everybody know. You put your name back out in the headlines again. It was a national story. You had your Ian Rappaports, your Mike Garafolos. Like, everybody was saying, what does this mean? Is he going to be traded? Which still feels like a very, very, very far-fetched possibility. I won't say it's a 0.0.
He accomplished three things. He didn't touch the field, didn't participate in the group activity on the field, but he accomplished three things. He didn't get fined. He showed up and still was a leader to his teammates and showed the coaches that he's still locked in. And 3, still stood on a stance of where he's at. So, I mean, for Budda's minicamp, it was an accomplishment. And
what a surprise. Budda Baker does everything perfectly.
Even off the field.
Even off the field.
Yep.
Yeah, it's not a big deal because not much has happened, right? Yeah. Like, it's about as mild as it could get. In the moment, it was okay. Mm-hmm. He said he was going to be here, but we don't see him out here. He was even involved in the Cardinals had like a charity video where they were having a competition, offense versus defense, who could put together the most, I forget what they were packing, but offense versus defense, who could put together the most for charity. Mm-hmm. And Budda Baker was there in the video. Yeah. He was interacting with people. So it's just what the public
What we're allowed to see.
Right, what we're allowed to see, allowed to talk about, everything like that. So that is what it is. Yep. It's sitting out there. Budda Baker, still not extended, still doesn't have a new contract, but all that staying internal, like Monty Ossenford has said, he's wanted it too.
Yes, there is a definite change there in thinking of keeping things in-house.
Speaking of definite change, we officially learned that Isaiah Simmons has a new full-time position.
Said it himself.
He said it himself. Isaiah Simmons, formerly an inside linebacker, then turned star backer, is now a defensive backer. I think, defensive back.
Yeah,
he's a part of the safety. He's in the secondary, and when asked if he was going to maybe broaden his horizons beyond the safety position and the secondary position, he said, no, I'm learning this one. I'm figuring this one out.
Wants to master it.
Right, wants to master it. So it's like they're half giving me what I want.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They're like, hey, Eric, you said you wanted that. You wanted Isaiah Simmons to focus on one position.
Here you go.
Yeah.
It's just not the one you wanted him to do.
But you know what? I'll take it. Right?
And I think
potential.
And
right?
I think it's not just going to I think he's going to be moved all around the secondary. I don't think it's just going to be at one spot. I think they're really going to work around. I mean, granted, if Budda's around, but Jalen, Budda, and him, that's a really, really tough trio if you can put them in the right spot. So I could also see him being more of a slot guy too. I really do think that's a possibility. He played a lot there last year, so I think they just want him to learn kind of the basics of that secondary to where if he's got to jump up there and guard somebody on the line, he can do so. So I think on the surface, I think a lot of us are still like, how exactly is this going to work out?
Well, because he was so raw when looking at it. Because maybe he was half in, half out, but at week 1 against Travis Kelce, like that. And maybe that's unfair. It was the first week of the season, and like, to put it all on the table, he got his role dramatically reduced as the next couple of weeks rolled on because they said they gave him too much.
And he had bad practice habits. So they took some away. They demoted him a little bit. And we saw the Raiders game where he came back and did what he did. So just very interesting. I was very surprised that he actually went as far as saying, I'm rolling forward with the DB.
I mean, at this point, it was almost obvious. Like every time you saw him, every time he was doing anything.
We could say that for the last 3 years. Every time we saw him, he was working with the DBs.
Right? I think eventually they started working him around. Did they? No, they didn't just have him work with the DBs before.
Last year was working mainly with the DBs.
Man, that's why I was so angry.
It's like, remember, I told you, I was like, I'll send you the message when it's like, hey, here's your tweet of the year. Yep. Isaiah Simmons is starting with the DBs again.
At least he's sticking with it. And I'll say, like, if you want to look at it from a different perspective, because maybe I initially wouldn't want to put him there, but he's there. So let's actually talk about it the way that it is. I don't want him super close to the line of scrimmage. I don't want him playing up as much. To me, the thing that's really been lacking with him is his instant reaction almost.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I don't want to say the quick twitch because that's more the athleticism part of it. And athleticism, he checks all the boxes, but he's
just a bigger dude.
Right. He takes a little bit of time, a little bit maybe more than some of these smaller guys like a Budda Baker to shift, to move on a dime, to stay with somebody immediately. And so if you were to stay back and read the defense and maybe give him more of that ability to try to get those pick sixes a la the Saints game, that is where I could see him thriving. He's so long, he's so fast, he's so athletic. Hopefully his feel for the game increases and kind of widens as he just focuses on one area. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to say I'm 100% confident that that's going to happen, but at least I can see the vision. I can understand why they would look at somebody like that, see the tools, the building blocks, and say, hey, let's build on this.
Yeah. You can definitely see at least there's more of a vision. It's not so much, we're going to try him here, we're going to try him here. No, it's master this spot, and then we'll see from there.
And they're not hyping him up as, our star backer.
We're making a whole new position. No.
Yeah, it was just
That just added to it.
It was too much.
That just added to it.
Okay. Accountability was your number one takeaway.
Yeah.
Then we go into Budda Baker. The takeaway is that there really is no takeaway as of right
just
now.
that he accomplished what he needed to get done.
Boxes checked. Let's see when something actually happens.
Yes.
Isaiah Simmons fully moved over to DB. Full-time.
Yep.
All of his attention. What else caught your attention over that week?
I think just really, I think a quote from Dennis Gardeck about Zaven Collins, just the intelligence he's bringing to the pass rushing group and just how massive the dude is. Like, Gardeck had to stop in mid-sentence. Like, I don't know if you guys realize how big this guy is. And so it sounds like not only is Zaven making his presence known physically, but also mentally with just what he's been able to, you know, I guess, give back to these guys. I'm like, hey, if you're here, you got to look for this or this or this, because he's got, I mean, he was the Mike backer, he was a quarterback of the defense. So if anybody's going to have those extra tips and tricks, it would be Zaven. So I think that really stood out, and it sounds like his progression in that role is really moving forward, just taking that step by step, day by day kind of attitude to it.
I'm so confident in Zaven Collins. I don't know if like that's too much of an overreaction into how he's carrying himself, but I thought he had some really good stretches last year.
Oh, yeah.
Was one of the most consistent players
Easily.
in the defense. And he has room to grow. He's
a lot of room.
Very young.
Yep.
Completely new defensive system that he seems to be fully bought in on.
Yep.
I don't worry about him anymore. And I feel like I've said this a couple times, but it's almost a little shocking to me how much I'm just like, yeah, like this is great. Like he's fine, because he was such a big question mark before. Huge. Bigger than Isaiah Simmons, and that is completely shifted. And this whole new regime really seems to have everybody buying in. And I want to talk just real briefly about the offensive line room.
Yeah.
Because there's been a couple of things that have happened. This not at mandatory minicamp, but Paris Johnson Jr. was at Chase Field to join Burns and Gambo.
Yeah.
Quite a sentence. And he was detailing the draft process. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
You can hear the full interview on the Arizona Sports app from Burns and Gambo. But the real thing that got to me was when they asked him about expectations. Mm-hmm. And they asked him, like, what is it like being a rookie going into this season? And he was basically saying it's very different than when I was at Ohio State. Because at Ohio State, you were going to every single year
thinking you're winning something.
Very much expected to be at the top of the top.
Yep.
He said they're basically playing with house money, which I think is an interesting perspective for a top 10 pick. But could that almost just lighten the mood around a camp to where you have somebody like DJ Humphries coming out and being like, I'm trying to gel with and to bond with the Paris Johnson Jr., even though sometimes when young guys come in top picks and there are these established veterans, especially like DJ Humphries, who have really worked just to keep their name in there and to be solid, sometimes that doesn't happen. But it feels like everybody's kind of there to grow, common goal. And I feel like that's, to me, a really big takeaway.
Well, yeah, and I think what it really comes down to is the fact that they're not putting... I don't think they're putting anybody on a pedestal, really. I think it's, hey, you're all coming in here, you're all competing, we're all going to grow this thing through competition. And I think all the guys they've brought in are guys that are grinders and guys that want to put that extra work in. I mean, just the rookies, look at those guys. I mean, all of those guys seem like they are dudes that want to stay in, get another workout after the day's over type deal.
Like my boy Michael Wilson?
And yes, and exactly. I mean, he's exactly in that same line with Paris Johnson and even John Gaines, even though we haven't really talked to John Gaines a lot.
Yeah, I haven't heard a lot from him.
He just seems like he's getting it. He seems like he seems like he's being trusted by the veterans. It seems like he's
most of the center reps, or no?
Just I mean, just in the open portion, that's really the most of the work he's getting. It feels like is at center. Him, Froholt, Lasitas. Like I think those are the three that are at this point moving forward are going to be the guys going for that job. So, I mean, Paris seems like he's just ready to do whatever. He really does. He seems like he is. I know that every rookie is about that at that point, trying to find where they can fit in, but it really feels like Paris is already
weight to his voice.
He already seems like he's a veteran. The way he handles himself, the way he goes about things, the way he just practices.
He already has a foundation.
Has his own jerky.
That's just that those are some veteran stories, right? Like I expect Dennis Gardeck
speaks a couple languages. Yeah, exactly. So it's
journalism major, stuff like that.
So it's just that you see these rookie trends, and it's you're seeing it not only with the rookies, but you're seeing it with everybody else. And I think that's really, they're breeding that culture of we're having a competition every single day of the week. and it's making all these guys grow closer and want to, get that other person better, even though they could be fighting for each other's jobs. I mean, Antonio Hamilton, him talking about, how he watches a draft and gets excited to watch the draft because he knows that he's got more competition because they want to replace him. He says that every year. And now he's got Garrett Williams, who, if he can get on the field sooner than later, he's going to be a stud, I think.
Yeah.
And Keitrell Clark, who's got a ton of energy from what Mike Wilson's saying. So it's going to be really interesting with that. But Antonio Hamilton, same thing. I want to coach these guys up. I want to be a mentor. But at the same time, I'm going to go out there and prove my own worth at the same time. So it's just really interesting to see that kind of fine line between helping a guy or helping your competition or doing what's better for the team. And it seems like they're all going for what's better for the team.
Sensing a lot of positivity. Coming from you.
And here we go.
Now, and I want to talk to you candidly about this.
Candidly.
Because, yeah.
That's what you say?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, jeez. Okay, I'm sorry. I'll stop talking to you, podcast co-host. I'll stop asking you questions. No. Okay. Sometimes I find myself wondering if we are getting a little ahead of ourselves because this new regime seems so polar opposite from what it was before. Because when I start breaking it down into these little sections, right? Let's just take the rookie class.
Okay.
Paris Johnson Jr., nothing but great things about, right? How the whole draft was conducted besides the tampering charges, like fantastic. Great. Like we're on top of it. We think it was good.
Yep.
Okay. Go through each round pick. We're thinking this person's a hit. Right? I feel like that for a lot of the picks. Obviously, the later rounds you feel less likely on, but I feel confident in a Michael Wilson. I feel confident in a John Gaines. I feel confident in a Garrett Williams.
Yep.
BJ Ojulari.
If he signs.
If he ever signs. Obviously, Paris Johnson. Talk about the coaching. Talk about the players that are already here. Zaven Collins. Yeah. Are we overlooking maybe what we're judging them on as a baseline? Of like, oh, they're going to be really good. They're going to be great. Like 5 years from now, are we going to look back and really be like, oh, all those building blocks that were there, they all came to fruition. Everything was as great as it appeared. Like, are we a little blinded by a new era?
I think we're going off of just how bad the last one was. I think that's really what it comes down to is all of.
But that doesn't necessarily mean the next one's going to be great.
No,
better.
No, but at the same time, I think we're already seeing the small steps. And let me be clear, the small steps, because we still have to get to the regular season. We still have to get to the nuts and bolts of all of this. But from what we're seeing right now, this foundation is getting set. I mean, they took a sledgehammer to the old one, whatever was left of that old one, because there wasn't much. It might have just been sand and dirt. But they swept that off, and now they're starting